All right, showing we're live. Let's. Still good? Can you hear me? All right. Let me just share this. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to another live episode of Two Guys Talking Sports. We've been a little absent the past couple weekends. We did do a recorded episode that released on our Facebook and YouTube channels, but we're back. Big win for the Gamecocks over the weekend or yesterday, Stephen. Clemson I felt like they tippy-toed to the finish line, but we'll go ahead and jump right into it. It was a big weekend of college football. We'll start with South Carolina, continue on with Clemson, and then we'll kind of get to some national games and kind of talk about the rankings and what we think how the new rankings of the college football playoff will work out. But South Carolina traveled to Vanderbilt. Always a fun time with the 28-7 win over the Commodores. You didn't really know. I can speak for myself. I didn't truly know what to think of the game. It was raining. There was a lot of hype coming in for Vanderbilt with the quarterback with Diego Pavia. Them upsetting Alabama, took Texas to the wire. South Carolina, you don't know what team you're really going to see week in and week out. Had the big win over Texas A&M last weekend. Didn't know how that would translate coming into this weekend. Didn't know if it was going to be a trap game, but secured a win. Stephen, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's one of those games that normally you look at Vanderbilt, you say, okay, that's pretty much always a win, but this is a different Vanderbilt team. And it kind of looked at the beginning of the season like maybe they were just a flash in the pan, but as the season has gone on, they've continued to have their success and play well. So this ain't the same old Vanderbilt that you're used to playing. And like you said, I think that coming off the big win from Texas A&M, then having to go on the road to Vanderbilt, it could have been a trap game, but it seems like Beamer and them are finally changing the culture of what you would normally feel going into games like that as a Gamecock fan, where you would normally feel they'll find a way to screw this up. They'll come off a big win and then they'll lose to a team that they shouldn't lose to. But it seems like that they're changing the culture of that for sure.
Yeah, and another thing is, outside the defense, I think all the hate and the slack, while it's well deserved, that was put towards Dow Loggins and the offensive, maybe not the whole offensive staff, but maybe just towards the play call. And it seems the past couple of weeks they've kind of figured it out and found what works best, and that's depending on Rocket Raheem Sanders and getting 20 to 25, maybe 30 carries a game. And I mean, it's really showing. You rewind to Texas A&M last week. Let's see how many he had. I mean, Sanders had 15 rushes for 126 yards. Yesterday, he had 52 receiving yards, and kind of similar numbers last week against Texas A&M. And you allow them to Lenore's to kind of use his athleticism to make the plays, because he does make some good passes, but his passing is not his forte. Right. He uses the athletic ability to make the passes that he needs to. So it's the defense is going to be what it was going to be. We knew with our pass rush we had to be able to limit Pavia. So it was really, I mean, it was a really good win yesterday. Bowl eligible, first time, third time in 4 seasons for Beamer. And really, the way we've looked it's really sky's the limit the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it is. And if you look at just even non-Gamecock, just fans on Twitter or even the media, people like Dan Orlovsky, they've said, like, look, this is a playoff team. Like, yeah, they've
Yeah.
lost 3 games, but if they win out, the way that they're playing right now shows you that they could compete in the playoffs, and they have an argument to be made to being in there. I mean, with the 2 losses, 2 of your 3 losses should have been wins, and of course you could always shoulda, woulda, coulda, but especially one of them. If you're the committee and you're looking at that LSU loss, you've got to take into account how bad the referees were when you look at that loss. When you look at the country as a whole, and I guess we can kind of save this to the end, but some of South Carolina's losses are better than other teams' wins. Like when you look at a Colorado, or you look at even like Army and some of these teams that are in there, BYU, they're not beating anyone. Even if you look at Miami, like Miami has yet to play and will not play a top 25 team their entire season. Which, again, we can get into all that later. So, but yeah, I think just overall, I think they've it's obviously been a combined effort with the play calling, because it has been like a shift. And normally you won't see that big of a shift from just one individual and what they are kind of ingrained to do as a play caller.
Yeah.
But it seems like that, the game has really slowed down quickly for Lenoris.
Yeah.
Where he's not making those decisions that he was making very early on. He did still have that one fumble where it seems like because he was getting better about that. He was getting better about protecting the ball, and then you can see it coming when they start running around and they're just holding it out here. All it takes is one guy just hitting you from behind, and that's exactly what happened. But other than that, I mean, he's played a clean game every game since that Alabama one, where it was kind of on his head, that loss. Ever since then, I think he's really took it upon himself to figure out where his weaknesses are, become better at them. Even like you take last week where we had the 3rd down slide, and yesterday when you saw him and when he had an opportunity to get the 1st down, he didn't slide. But whenever he had 5 or 6 yards to go, he did slide to protect himself. So he's learning situational football a little bit better and able to be more successful, which is making us more successful.
Yeah, and again, you're going to have the growing pains of a true freshman, or he's technically a redshirt freshman. But as a first-year starter, SEC football, you're going to have those growing pains. Like, it's just, unfortunately, it's going to happen. And you look at the Diego Pavia, I mean, he was, and it's the great thing about him, but it's also a downside where you keep getting hit like he was. It's eventually going to catch up to you. And I mean, he got hurt a couple of times in that game.
Right.
But again, let's get back to the game as a whole. South Carolina had 452 yards of total offense, 238 through the air, 214 on the ground. Sellers went 14-20, 238 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 13 rushes for 38 yards. And Rocket Sanders, 126 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and 2 catches for a touchdown. So 3 touchdowns overall for Rocket yesterday. And again, our offense is not going to be something where, at least from what we've seen through 9 games this season, our defense, our offense isn't going to be something where we have to rely on them to go out and win us that game. Like, we're not going to put up a 50 points a game consistently and take some pressure off the defense. But having that defense as a security blanket with the pass rush we have, with the linebackers, how athletic they are, the secondary. I mean, give credit to let me get his name. Give me just a second. I had it, but I lost it. Because DQ Smith did not play yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
So hold on. Let me find this. It's not a big deal, but just having that defense is just insane. I mean, he had 2 sacks yesterday, forced fumble, and that forced fumble came at a big time because it came right after Lenoris fumbled the ball in our own territory, and is basically a red zone, possession for Vanderbilt. Defense allowed 274 yards of offense against Vanderbilt. And again, you never really know. Like, we've won the past 16 years against Vanderbilt, but we haven't really had many games where it was like outside of last year, I feel where Vanderbilt usually plays us pretty tough. Like
Yeah.
we're pretty common programs, and you never know how the game's going to go, especially playing in Vanderbilt. Like I said, the rain being a factor, it's not a tough environment to play in because I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10 it's a
pretty much a home away from home for every visiting team.
Yeah.
You look at the Alabama game. I think they probably have more fans. I think one of the beat writers for South Carolina said they estimated anywhere from 20 to 30,000 South Carolina fans. And by the time the game gets out of hand, then it's pretty much all South Carolina fans.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before with Vanderbilt, is like there's really not any like diehard Vanderbilt fans. If you go to an away game, you're always going to run into the diehard fans that are talking trash to you, know, as you're there going into the game around the city, and all this. But then when you go to a Vanderbilt game, it's just like, oh, we have a football team.
Yeah.
It's just not the thing there.
I can attest to that. I went to the game last time they played in Vanderbilt, and we got picked up from a hotel. I kid you not, probably not even half a mile from the football stadium.
Yeah.
And the Uber driver was like, "What brings you on in town?" We're like, "Football game." He's like, "What football game?" It's like, you got a college. I was like, regardless if you're a fan or not, like, I don't understand how you don't know there's a college football program in this town that's a mile and a half from Broadway. But again, I really think the way our team has rebounded from the losses against LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, you can play the what if game all you want to from the LSU and Alabama game. But we're playing some pretty dang good football right now. We're a dangerous team, and I feel like Beamer's kind of taking on that mantra that Lamont Paris, our basketball coach, took on, where it's like, listen, we don't want you to rank us. We want you to doubt us. Now we are 23rd in the AP rankings, and we'll see, the beginning of the week where we fall under the new college football playoff rankings. But we're a dangerous team right now, and getting into, we've got 3 games remaining between Missouri, Wofford, Clemson. We have a great opportunity now that may not happen, but we've got a great opportunity to win out and finish 9-3. Like that's not a hot take to make.
No. And I will say this, speaking back to the offense, is like, we knew that there was going to be struggles this year with the offense. One, very young quarterback, didn't really know what Rocket was going to be. And he wasn't 100% healthy at the start of the year. Kind of wide receivers, didn't really know a lot there. You're starting a true freshman at left tackle, shaking up the offensive line. But I think that you went through those growing pains, but the defense has been so good that they've allowed us to go through those growing pains, win some games. They've even, scored on their own a bunch to help us win games. But then you take a game like yesterday where you have an elite defense, you let them make the stop, and then you have an offense that can then drive the field and score touchdowns. And it seems like the offense has just consistently grown to where they're not a liability anymore.
Correct.
Again, like you said, they're not the ones where we're saying, hey, defense isn't doing well. We got to put the ball in your hand. You guys go win the game.
Yeah.
We're going to have to still have our defense be the main, part of our game to win.
Yeah.
But the offense now is a lot more reliable that you can say, hey, even when we don't score, we're putting together a drive and flipping field positions that make it harder for the other teams to score. And like a lot of people said, when you look at it, they beat Alabama, Vanderbilt did, and they almost beat Texas. And coming out of this game, they said that South Carolina was the hardest game that they've played. And they absolutely dominated them in all 3 phases of the game.
Yeah, their coach, and I'm not going to say the exact word, but he was like, this was a 3-phase butt whooping last night. And I mean, it honestly and truly was. Like, it was never a game, or there was never a point in the game where I was necessarily concerned. We did give up some big plays to the quarterback, gave up some passes. But again, like, that's going to happen.
You're going to have that with a quarterback like that. Yeah.
And, you kind of have to take the good with the bad, that bend, don't break mentality. And, Clayton White has definitely earned himself. Like, he very well could win the the top assistant of the year. I think it's like the Broyles Award or something. I mean, he's definitely improved. We talk all about the transfer portal and everything, and whether you're for it or you're against it. the change or the pickups we made in the offseason with Demetrius Knight, Kyle Kennard, those two in particular can change the entire identity of your football program.
Yeah.
And those have paid huge dividends for this football team. And we'll kind of get into kind of some off the field noise that was made this week for both South Carolina and Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Came out Friday night that Vanderbilt's quarterback was suing the NCAA for like more years of eligibility because he went the JUCO route.
Right.
So, one can argue, did that play a factor in his performance yesterday? Was he distracted by it?
Yeah. One could also argue when he says that, like, is he planning on leaving Vanderbilt? He's had a stellar year this year, kind of made a name for himself to where he could maybe take a stepping stone to a school that's, would be considered, I guess, above Vanderbilt. There's obviously some, or maybe he's just not hearing a lot from his drafts. There's obviously a reason, but with the portal now, you have to take into consideration, like, okay, well, is he wanting more years because he's thinking about, I've had a great year here. Yep, pay me more, or either, I'm going to use this as a stepping stone to another school to try and, bolster my name a little bit more than that. You just never know.
I mean, he, for all the, the hype and while it's well deserved, he didn't really impress me that much yesterday. Like, it's not like he's going to go to Oregon next year and make them into something that they're not already are.
Exactly.
Did you see the interview they did with his mom during the game?
Yeah.
Oh, they've got to stop that. Like, those infuriate me. Like, there's no point in interview. Like, and I was talking with a buddy of mine. You could clearly tell that they built their entire production around him, and they couldn't really. You can't make adjustments once you've already done your production meetings and the game started.
Right.
But his mom saying, he's completely transformed. I'm paraphrasing Vanderbilt football. Like, no, he hasn't.
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Are they having a great season for their standards? Yes.
But he's the type of quarterback that could be easily replaced at Vanderbilt.
Exactly.
And then do what they're doing or something, on par for where they're at right now. Like you said, he's not coming in. He didn't take them from 2 wins to now they're going to win 8 wins this year, and it's all because of him.
Vanderbilt also hit the transfer portal very hard this past offseason. But again, he was running for his life yesterday. He didn't know what to do. And my buddy that I was texting with, again, he was making a point. He had no idea how he had not thrown an interception the way he was just throwing the ball up.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's true. But again, that goes back to the defense just creating constant pressure. And again, it's what I think it's just what we're going to say for the rest of this football season is the defense is probably the best in the country, top to bottom, in my opinion.
For sure. They're definitely top 2. And they're ranked second, I think, in total defense.
Yeah, I think behind Texas, honestly.
Yeah. And really, you only had that one outlier of a game, which didn't end up really being the defense's fault with the Ole Miss game.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, some of the stats kind of
again, if you can't move the ball and create some drives, there's only so much the defense can do. And I'm all about like painting the entire picture. Like, okay, yes, like Ole Miss's first touchdown against us was off our stupidity of faking a punt and putting them inside their own 30-yard line. So it was a big win yesterday. Nick Harbor continues to impress. We're going to continue to rely on using the tight ends like Joshua Simon. I think he's our leading receiver this year.
Yeah, and you even saw him trying to get the ball to Michael Smith, get him involved. But again, it was like you're allowing a player who's still adjusting to this to this game, to a new position, to not have to like immediately be an impact, but eventually, if you give them time to adjust, to learn the position, to learn the game, they're going to start making a bigger impact. And that's what Harbor's done. Like every game, he's making a little bit more of an impact than he was game 1. And that's a defense allowing a young offense, an inexperienced offense, to kind of grow as the season goes on. And that's what you want. You want to get better as the season goes on. You don't want to come out hot out the gates. And then like some of these teams, LSU, Alabama, even Texas has kind of looked shaky at times. Some of these teams that are like hot out the gate, top of Georgia, all of these teams that are considered the top of the top. And then now it's like the end of the year and they're fumbling here. They're not looking as great. And then you have a South Carolina team. Yeah, they got 3 losses, but they're looking better than Georgia. They're looking better than some of these teams that are considered pretty much shoe-ins to the playoffs. It's like you got to just take away the names and just look at the film and do the eye test and say, who is playing the best football right now? And right now, not to sound like a homer, but South Carolina is. And we're not the only – Gamecock fans aren't the only ones saying it. I mean, it's national media as well.
Exactly. And, again, like I said, with Harbor, it's coming with time. With the tight ends, it just – again, you can tell that our offensive identity is feeding Rocket. And it seems to be, like you mentioned, he wasn't necessarily 100% healthy at the beginning of the season. Maybe he now has gotten his feet up under him, healthy. He's able to run the ball. He looks like he's running with the bricks in his shoes because he doesn't look very fast.
Yeah.
But again,
he also can just bam and he's gone.
Exactly. But again, we're 6-3 on the season. I believe we're 4-3 in conference play now. This is our first time in, I believe, in 14 years where we've won 3 SEC games on the road. You got Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. And then we finish out the SEC play at home this coming weekend against Missouri. And one thing I do want to note before we move on to Clemson, because this is a local person, Dylan Product, Josiah Thompson went down injured. I think it was in the first half. But again, I think this goes to a bigger picture thing where Tree Bobblade comes in. He very well could have easily, and I think there's rumblings he wasn't necessarily healthy this season at all, but he comes in, hasn't played really much since the first game if that, and comes in and effectively does a dang good job stepping in for Josiah. But that's what you need to have. He very well could have easily said, listen, I'm not getting the playing time I want. It's clearly seeing that this guy is the future at this position. Now Tree could obviously move to another position, but he very well could have just been like, I'm not going to blow this year. I want a red shirt and I'm going to transfer somewhere. But doing that, it helps you in the future because it shows you can come in at a moment's notice and effectively have it, probably did better than Josiah. Who knows? I'm not saying that's the case, but still a good performance, bowl eligible. Before we go or move on, what I think we did talk about this, but the Shane Beamer ripped into the state newspaper in his post-game press conference. It was not related to the article that they released. What did you think about the article that the state wrote about Dylan Stewart? For people who may not know, the state newspaper, which usually hates South Carolina, wrote an article this week basically saying Dylan Stewart is up, is probably going to get a huge pay increase in NIL, and that's kind of that's the gist of it. So, Steven, give me your thoughts on it.
Well, I think that it kind of what it seemed like that they had either been around a conversation that they heard or was told some information about negotiations, and then none of this was told directly to this person, to the journalist. They, found it.
Is that what people are saying?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't come out. The journalist didn't come out and say, "Hey, Shane Beamer or this agent told me." It was basically that they were told that they, and ever since then, yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is in the situations like this, the only thing that it benefits is the state paper because they're going to get clicks. But
which is their job.
It is, but it's also a shady way of doing it. And like you said, it doesn't help with the fact that they've always kind of been against South Carolina, even with the article that Shane mentioned in his post-game press conference about, the whole Vanderbilt thing last year. It's just like, okay, you already hate us, or at least that's what you make it seem like. And then all of a sudden you take a private conversation between a player and the NIL, whatever, and you're releasing these numbers and you're saying all this stuff. And again, it's honestly, I like being able to know the numbers. That's always been my gripe with NILs. We don't know how much each one's getting paid. So, but I think that the way he just went about it is like nobody told you this information. Obviously, you have sources, but it's just like a skeezy way of writing an article. Again, in the long run, we all knew that he was going to get more money. And you know, like you told me, it was like, you know, because I was like, well, you're basically saying like this is the starting rate, like this is what the first offer is. Just offer more if you're Texas. Just offer more if you're Georgia. Well, they could just go to his agent and find out what the offer is as well. Unless there's something in a contract that says, hey, in negotiations, you can't release the numbers that we're saying. And that could be true too. And then once you release this information, you know, they could have a negotiation that says, hey, look, we're going to offer you 1.5, but until you sign that, you can't release this number to any other school saying what we're offering you. And then you get that information as a journalist and you put it out there. Well, now you've just voided that whole negotiation that they had. Just so that you could write an article for clicks. Again, that's your job, get clicks, but it's just a shady way of doing it. And it doesn't help whenever you are already biased against South Carolina.
So here's my take on it. So, you know, I mean, I read the article, like there was nothing bad about it. I don't know. I think our fan base just finds everything to hate the state paper for, which is well deserved. But again, this isn't. I think
that's what the big thing was. Is like this is a small thing, but it's the fact that it's a bunch of small things, and then all of a sudden you throw another small thing out there, and it's just like, all right, well, what's the point of this, man?
I mean, again, it's their job to. Again, I would be more understanding if he like just completely ripped into somebody. He just talked about how great a season Dylan Stewart was having. He's going to be he's going to get a pay increase. This is kind of what the general range is going to be. And South Carolina's already started working to ensure that they keep him because the transfer portal does open in a month or less than a month. And again, I didn't see anything wrong with it. You know,
I think it's the fact that it's the whole history behind the relationship between the state paper and South Carolina. And this is just one more thing. And it is kind of like if it's somebody who's constantly talking trash about you, just because they haven't said anything in a month, if they say something again a month later, you're just going to be like, all right, well, here we go again. Like, what's the point?
Yeah. But again, I think that's just more fan outrage.
Yeah.
Again, he's represented by an agent. So just like in any professional free agency contract, they're going to get the best deal for their client. Now, it could be South Carolina, it could be Texas, it could be Ohio State, it could be Oregon, could be Clemson, Georgia, who knows? So the fact that people are saying, you know, it's, you know, they set the market and like teams know what to offer, but that doesn't mean anything. Like that.
Well, I really don't think that I don't think agents cannot release numbers to other schools. I don't think that even when, you know, NFL and stuff, like an agent can't say, hey, you know, New York Giants, the Cowboys offered this player $3 million for 3 years. What can you offer? You can't release those kind of terms to someone else. You can say, hey, look, we've got a really good offer on the table. It's a lot more than your last offer. You can say things like that, but you can't say, hey, South Carolina offered him $1.5 million. What are you going to offer us?
But as
a journalist, you put that out there. It's out there that, hey, this has been told to the player and agent that it's in between 1 and 1.5. So we know that we got to start at 1.5.
Well, I don't even think that was told to the agent. I think it's just using research, I guess you could say, because you don't know what these players are, you know, getting paid. So I don't even think – I think that's just a range that he probably will make this year. Like, I don't think that's something South Carolina was like, listen, we're going to give you $1.25 million to come back next year, and here's how we're going to do it. I think it's just something that they use to say, hey, this is probably what he could probably be making this year. And I think it also came out.
Well, if that's the case, though, I would say, hey, look, Joe Blow at, you know, 247 Sports told us this is the range of a player like him. He will most likely make 1.2 to 1.5. And negotiations have started with South Carolina. We've learned we don't know the exact numbers, but this is what we could guess based on other NIL deals. But that's not what he said. They've said South Carolina started negotiations, and we know it's going to be anywhere from 1 to 1.5.
That's what
so that makes it sound like. So that makes it sound like they've heard that South Carolina has offered him anywhere from 1 to 1.5.
Yeah.
And that's kind of giving those numbers out that an agent wouldn't be able to give to other teams.
Yeah. Again, I just think it's fake outrage.
It's a very small thing, but again, it's because you have a history of being against us. It's just one more thing.
I just hate that they attack the guy that wrote it. Like he didn't do anything wrong. Like he hasn't done anything to South Carolina. And again, it just falls under that. He's under that umbrella of the state newspaper. But again, like and I know Twitter's just or X is not representative of society, but man, like these people were laying into this kid. And it's like, dude, you're a grown adult. Grow up. Like, this is stupid. Like,
but I mean, at the same time, he's a grown adult and he knows what he's
nothing to sabotage the football season. They made it seem like they did this to kind of ruin the momentum and the camaraderie the football team has. Those players don't care about that. It's the same thing in the NFL. Like, you think, you know, you're wearing your Cowboy stuff. So I'll just mention this. You know, CD Lamb had the I don't know if he held out or whatever, but he got the huge payday. I don't know if he was going to hold out or whatnot. Do you think those players on the Cowboys cared? Like, no, go get your money while you can. Like, there's no guarantee for tomorrow. These players don't care about that stuff. Go get your money while you can.
Players definitely don't. They don't care. I think it's more. It is a fan thing.
Don't either.
But the thing is, for that journalist, like you got to know your surroundings. If you're new, let's just say he's new, and I really don't know how long he's been there, but you got to know, hey, the state paper's kind of crapped on South Carolina for years. This may come off that way to them, and I'm gonna get some hate for it. And again, it's your job. Just as a journalist, you're gonna get crap whether you write. It didn't matter what he wrote. He was gonna catch crap from somebody.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just unfortunately for him. The people before him have crapped on South Carolina so much that he's just going to catch the brunt of it when you write an article like that.
Yeah, like there was
unfortunately.
I think Ben Portnoy was before Jordan, and
awful.
Honestly, I thought Portnoy was okay. Again, awful. He
was awful.
You don't even know you didn't even know his name before I said something.
I don't even read these articles that these guys write.
Well, half the time it's behind a paywall. I mean, but again, it's the same stuff. What he wrote is no different than what goes up on 3 with Gamecock Central and what goes up on the Big Spur. Like that is discussed all day.
It's literally because they've crapped on South Carolina so much in the past. Because nobody wouldn't have cared if it on 3 released it. They wouldn't have cared if Big Spur, any of those. It's because it's just a history thing. It's a history of you've crapped on us, so it just comes off as just one more attempt to crap on us again.
Yeah, stupid.
That's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Fan base for you. We're always going to find something to complain about. Yeah, I mean, he could have said nothing but great things, and another thing is like, okay, if somebody else has that information, again, it's his job to get the story out there. If somebody else had it, like, okay, I would much rather get this out. Again, you're like you said, people are going to hate you no matter what. You know, I would much rather get my story out and get the notoriety, I guess you could say it. Again, I just think our fan base just finds any and everything to complain about, and will find any way to twist something into something that it's not. And again, it doesn't help. It's with the state newspaper, but that's where it's at. Let's jump into Clemson for a few minutes. I know you probably didn't watch it. I watched the highlights of it. Clemson goes into Virginia Tech, coming off a tough loss to Louisville last weekend. Clemson did come out victorious 24-14. It wasn't pretty, though. I mean, Clemson didn't score the entire first half. I was watching the highlights, and I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what to make of Cade Klubnik. Like, if you look at his stats from yesterday, he did have 3 touchdown passes. He did have a costly interception, though, in the first half where – and I can't remember if it was a 3rd down or 4th down, but I don't know if they were maybe right outside of field goal range or not. But he clearly had nothing open, and he was getting rushed, and he just threw the ball up in there and they turned it over. It's like, that's not something the time he's played in this offense for 3 seasons now should not be making those plays. But then you have where he avoids a sack and then throws a touchdown pass. So it's like, I don't know what to make of Clemson. I really, truly don't.
They're just very inconsistent. But again, like, this was their first win of the season where they beat an opponent that had a winning record. Any other time, any other victory, it's been someone that's 500 or below.
Yeah.
Both of the other times that they played teams with winning records, they lost. They didn't look good in this game. I mean, even though they're victorious, you look at their fan base and you're just like, we're not a well-coached team. We don't execute well. We don't do, half the things that we normally do right. We just, again, if there's any team with any kind of pulse, they struggle against. Again, at 24-14, it was a 10-point victory, but it was like they pretty much, it wasn't pretty. Like they were down at one point, having field goals blocked for a touchdown.
That's their third blocked field goal in 2 games. And like you just mentioned, that was that's how Virginia Tech went up in the first half and took it into halftime at 7-0.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't truly know what to make of Clemson. And I'm trying to come from like an unbiased standpoint because we are Carolina fans. But they just have not looked very good this year.
And they're one of those teams, like I mentioned earlier, where you're just like, okay, South Carolina's losses look better than Clemson's victories because they haven't beaten anyone of substance. And again, you can say you still got to win the game, whatever. But if you just take the eye test and say take the score out of it, which team was better on the field today? South Carolina was better against LSU, and they were better than Alabama. And you can't even with Clemson's win yesterday, like you can't clearly say like, oh, they were head and shoulders better than Virginia Tech because they struggled to get that win. I mean, they pulled away at the end, but it wasn't like they were just coming out there and dominating them from the beginning. And this is a 5-4 team that they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to, and you're trying to make a case that you should be in the playoffs, whether you win the ACC or not. Like, no, like, they come in at number 17 in the AP polls. Like, what are you saying? What have you saw from them that says they're the 17th best team in the nation?
Yeah, and Virginia Tech benched their starting quarterback yesterday. So I just, you can give credit to Clemson's defense, maybe, or maybe Virginia Tech just, Virginia Tech lost to Vanderbilt, in week 1 of the college football season. Again, just, I don't know. Their tough matchup that was supposed to come this weekend doesn't look as tough because Pittsburgh lost to Virginia yesterday.
There's no team in the ACC where you're like, yes, that is a very good team. You kind of could have said that about Miami.
I think you can say it more about SMU now compared to Miami because SMU's only loss on the season is to BYU.
Right.
So that's a tough loss there.
There's
that was
no one in the ACC where you're just like, okay, this is they should get their ACC champion because that's what the rules are. But other than that, there should be no ACC team outside of them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be that way. And like I said, I think if it would have been Ole Miss, if it had been SMU and Miami in the conference championship game and both hadn't lost a conference game, and Miami went in undefeated, SMU went in with their only loss to BYU, and SMU beats Miami, you can maybe make a point where Miami could potentially deserve to get an at-large bid, but they've been kind of flirting with disaster previous weeks, and chickens came home to roost yesterday with their loss against Georgia Tech. Hold on, I'm finding Miami's game because Miami's remaining schedule is they're off this coming week. Then they've got Wake Forest and Syracuse.
They won't play a ranked opponent all year. They will not have one single game where they played a ranked team all year.
I'm looking at it now. It's nothing. So you got anything else?
And unfortunately for the Gamecocks, you got to pull for Clemson to win this week so that they stay ranked coming into that last game. It was the same way. Like yesterday, we did finish watching up the Missouri-Oklahoma game, and I was sitting there with Kevin. I was like, "You want Missouri to look bad?" And they did, but at the same time, I was like, we need them to win. Like, we need them to win and stay ranked because if they come in and we beat them, that's just one more ranked win. Same thing for Clemson. You want them to stay ranked because if you get there and you beat them at the end of the year and they're ranked, that would be out of your last 6 games, you beat 4 ranked opponents.
Yeah. we're going to get into that dweeb Eli Drinkwitz. Got a commenter said, if Carolina wins the next 3, do we get into the playoff? I don't think so. I think a lot. It depends how the rest of the season goes for the remainder of the SEC teams because, man, it's a cluster in the SEC. No team can pull ahead, and it's like there's going to be a way to figure out who's going to be represented in the SEC championship game. So, I mean, if we win out, do we have a case? Of course we do. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you look at our 3 losses, let's exclude Ole Miss because that just was not a good one. But if Lenoir's doesn't go down, do we lose to LSU? And
Probably
Alabama, you can play a what if game. If we don't fumble the ball, or if Lenoir's doesn't fumble the ball, what happens? So we have a case, and like they mentioned,
it all depends, and we still don't know how the committee decides these things, or how they're going to decide the at-large bids. Because is it eye test? Is it strength of schedule? Is it strictly records? Is obviously I think it's what they say is it's going to be a combination. It's going to be we're going to look at their schedule, we're going to look at their record, we're going to do the eye test. If you truly do that, if you truly look at the schedule, the eye test, the wins, and how the losses played out, you can't, even at 9-3, South Carolina looks better, has a better resume than teams that have a better record than them, like a BYU, like a Colorado, like all of these teams that are in there by name only. Like Notre Dame, dude, they haven't beat anyone. And and they have an extremely bad loss on their record. Like, if you look at South Carolina's losses, Notre Dame doesn't have as many, but that one loss is worse than South Carolina's 2 out of their 3.
Yeah. So, so we know there's going to be at least one from the SEC, one from the ACC, one from the Big 10, one from the Big 12, and a group of 5.
Right.
So those are 5 automatic bids, and then you have the top 4 are going to get first round buys. So you've got to figure out who are the other 7 best teams in this country, and you're going.
And also, is it who's playing the best football right now? Because again, Georgia might have looked like Georgia of last year at the beginning of this year, but they don't look good right now.
Yeah, but
you got to say if you got a 9-3 and a 10-2 team, okay, who's playing better ball right now?
Yeah, I think that might be a factor in it. But again, they've got to figure out.
We don't know how they do it.
Who are the?
I think that they're going to have to implement some kind of quad thing like they do for basketball, where you say hey, this is a quad 1 win that means a lot more than, or this is a quad 3 win. It doesn't mean as much as a quad 1 loss.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you kind of rank it that way
because basketball, they play 30 games a year. A season, football plays 12. So it's okay, how do you determine, out of the 7 at-large bids, who's better than the rest? Probably it's going the at-large teams are going to be from the SEC and the Big 10. Yeah. So let's look at the Big 10 before we get into the national scores. You got Oregon, Ohio State,
Penn State.
I don't know why I'm blanking. Penn State, you've got Indiana, so that's 4 that potentially have an argument to be made. SEC, you've got Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. I mean, you could probably throw in LSU maybe. I don't know. So that's 9 teams right there without even mentioning South Carolina. Yeah. I think, if honest to God, I think we would get in if say South Carolina wins out and LSU wins out, for example. I think we have a better case than LSU does. So, but again, that's 9 teams.
Here's the problem:
that are ranked ahead of us.
They're going to try and get a team like a BYU. They're going to try and get a team like a Colorado. And again, these teams aren't playing.
But if they don't get the automatic bids. If Colorado doesn't win the Big 12, they're not getting in. They're not going to get that at-large bid. They're just not going to.
That's the
because you
thing,
look
though. It's
at
like they should start ranking these teams now to say, like, hey, look, the only way that you're getting in is if you win your conference. So, yes, we think that you're a top 25 team, but we're not going to put you at 14 just because you might win your conference. We're going to put you at 25 because if you don't win, you're not getting in. Or if you do have a team like a South Carolina or an LSU that says, hey, look, you're not going to win your conference. We already know that. But there's a good chance that you're going to get in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to place you at 15 or 16, and we're going to see how this thing plays out. That way it doesn't look like a team comes in at 23 and then all of a sudden a team that was 13th gets flip-flopped the last week of the season. They got to start ranking them as who
well, I
has
also don't
the
think
best chance.
they should, honestly, man. I don't think they should do a weekly rankings for it because it's like a blank canvas every week.
It
Like
is,
Colorado does not have a win over a ranked opponent. They don't. Like they're kind of like Miami. And
that's the
but
thing
again,
is like that would piss off so many fans if you had a team like Miami. Let's say they get to the ACC championship, they lose to SMU, and now they have 2 losses, but they come in at 12th in the nation, so we're going to put them in. How? Because you didn't beat anyone at all. When you look at a team like Miami, who was 5th in the nation without a ranked win, and you have South Carolina, who has not only played more ranked teams, but have beat more ranked teams than Miami, and they weren't even in the top 25. It just makes no sense to me. Like, if you truly say we want the best teams in, no matter what the record is, because the thing is, when you have a team like South Carolina or Texas, like their schedule, they had the toughest schedules in the nation. So there's a good probability that they're going to have a loss. There's a good probability they may have 2 losses when you play the schedule that they do, because if it pans out to where we are going to play a ranked Missouri, if Clemson wins this week, we are going to play a ranked Clemson. 7 of our 12 games will be against ranked opponents.
Yeah. No,
that's more than half of your season against ranked opponents.
No,
you have some teams that won't play one at all.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. It's just, again, it's.
I think they're just going to have someone who isn't from South Carolina but sees it in that committee that is making that type of argument, and not even for just South Carolina, but a team like South Carolina, like an LSU, who's going to have to say, "Hey, look, yeah, they have losses, but they've played a harder schedule. They have better wins than some of these teams. That these wins, if you stack the Colorado up against South Carolina right now, there's no way they would beat us. I think Indiana and South Carolina, now that would be a good game.
Yeah, I agree.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, we definitely have an argument to be. I mean, if you win out, yeah, we definitely have an argument. But again, I just named 5 teams. Well, let's exclude LSU. 5 teams that are whether they're better than us or not, they have you have to win your games, and they've won their games. So unfortunately, I don't know. It's tough. Like, there's a lot that has to happen. But again, if we win out, we definitely have a case to be made. But again, it's like you said, if Colorado doesn't win their conference championship, how are they going to then leapfrog over somebody to be one of the top 12 teams if they lost their conference championship and they were the number 19 team in the country? So that's why I just don't understand why they do the rankings. I get it why they do it, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a blank canvas every week because we don't know who the top. You can rank them, but let's just say Oregon loses their conference championship game and they're the number 1 seed. Like, they're not going to be the number 1 seed, but there's no guarantee that anybody between 1 through 4 will be there. I don't know. It's different where it's like you've got automatic bids, and in previous, the first 10 years or 9 years of the college football playoff, there haven't been automatic bids.
Yeah.
So it's like, 1 through 5 is already predetermined, but who are those teams going to be? That number 5 seed could be number 15 BYU because they're a group of 5 team.
Right.
The ACC championship, let's just say Miami wins and they're the 13th, they're ranked number 13. Well, guess what? They're now probably going to be the number 4 seed. So it's like, in years past, you don't understand how that can happen. But now the first 5 seeds are already predetermined.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, how are you going to determine 6 through 12 when you don't even and I don't know if I'm making sense with the point I'm trying to make, but
nobody knows how it's going to shake out because nobody knows what the criteria is besides those five. And you really don't even know how they rank those. Like, okay, if you say, let's just say that the ACC does get one in. Well, who's to say that the 14, some of the at-large teams shouldn't be ranked higher to get that?
But they're not going to be.
Exactly. That's
why I don't like doing the rankings every week because, like I said, if Colorado does win the Big 12 championship and they're ranked 16 when they play it, they're going to be 1 through 5, and it's like, okay, what did they do to leapfrog 11 spots?
What they should do is say, hey, look, these are currently, if the season ended today, these are the 2 teams that will play for the conference championship and have a chance to have an at-large bid. And then we have a pool of 15 teams that are in consideration at the moment for our at-large bid. We're not going to rank them. We're not going to tell you kind of who's above who. We're just going to say these are the 15 teams that we see having a chance to get the at-large bid. And that could change. You could be in there 1 week, and then next week, if you lose, you're not in we're not considering you anymore in our pool of 15 or whatever it is. I mean, that's probably the best way to do it because, again, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people when you're 1 week you're 11th and you don't make it, but a team that was 23rd ends up getting in or something like that. It's going to be, I don't know. I agree. I don't think they should have the rankings because nobody understands them right now because of the at-large bids, because you're going to have a team like right now Penn State's number 6, which makes no sense. They have 1 ranked win on the year and they have 1 ranked loss. And then you have teams like an SMU who's 14, 12, 13, 14. If they win the ACC, they're going to get an automatic, but number 6 Penn State's going to have to hope for an at-large.
I don't know if I was right in saying the first 4 seeds are determined for the
first 4 seeds they're going to say, all right, we're going to take our 12 teams. 5 of them are going to be conference champions, automatic bids.
But I don't.
You might not get the top seed.
I don't think they're going to be the top 4 seeds.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like if let's say SMU wins the ACC, but they're not one of the top 4 when they say, all right, they're in there, but of the 12 that are in the playoffs, the ACC champion is not one of the top 4. They're not going to get that first round bye. They're still going to have to play first round, even though they're the ACC champion. An at-large team could actually get the top 4 seeds.
So this is from the NCAA's website. So the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded number 1 through 4 and receive a first round bye. Seeds 5 through. Okay, so it is conference champion. So the conference champion is 1 through 4. So,
but one of those conference champions.
It's already predetermined, at least the first 5 seeds. So it's going to be interesting. It's definitely a lot to debate. Let's close out with like the national recap. Miami finally, chickens came home to roost and lost to Georgia Tech 28-3. Miami, and I don't know if a lot of Clemson fans maybe thought they have a path back to the ACC championship game. They still technically do.
Yeah.
But if Miami and SMU still went out, Miami has the tiebreaker over Clemson because Miami beat Louisville, Clemson lost to Louisville. So the head-to-head matchup is done there. Ole Miss beats Georgia. Georgia is just a shell of itself.
That's what I'm saying. They're a team. They're more than
Carson Beck.
They're going to come. They're going to finish the season with a better record in South Carolina, but they do not look like they're better than South Carolina right now.
Yeah,
I saw Brad Crawford tweet this because he said something about South Carolina looks like they're a playoff team, and a Georgia fan commented, and they were like, "Yeah, but they're not going to make the playoffs." And he commented right back, and he was like, "Yeah, and luckily for Georgia, they don't play South Carolina this year."
Yeah, and again, we can go I think it's just an argument that we can go, and not just me and you directly, but anybody. It's like, okay,
I think that this South Carolina team, they're probably not going to get in, but they're going to be the most debated team nationwide if they win out of, just like you said, of non-South Carolina people, non-Clemson people, just national media that are going to say, if you look at this team, you have to give them serious consideration if they win out.
But again, it's like, okay, let's just say, for example, when the Clemson game ends at the end of the season, let's just say we beat Clemson, and in going into the week of the Clemson game, we were, I don't know, 19, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, and we beat Clemson. We don't know if Clemson's going to be ranked at that time. Let's just say, for sake of argument, they are, and they are ranked 14, for example. But there's clearly 7 teams in front of us. Okay, let's just say 13 wins. Like, I don't know. It's got to be something. That's why I don't like the rankings, because it puts that picture in people's heads. It's like, okay, Carolina was the number 20th best. They were the 20th best team in the country, and they beat Clemson, who was, at the time 13th best in the country according to the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
How on earth did they jump 8 spots? And it's like, that's the only downside with the rankings, because it gives people that you can see it clear as day, the numbers.
Right.
And
like I told Kevin this past weekend, I was like, when we come in, we're going to get ranked in the college football playoff rankings. I think we need to come in around 19 or 20. And then if you beat Missouri, you jump up a few more spots. And then if you can beat Clemson, and then you're right there on that cusp of 13, 14, then you're going to have your best argument. I think that South Carolina's dream path would be somehow Clemson makes the ACC championship. You went out and you beat Clemson, but somehow Clemson still gets into that game and they win that game. Your best argument will be, of our last 6 games, we beat 4 ranked opponents that included the ACC champion. That would have been your best case scenario argument to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Louisville had a bye week. So I'm going to start 25 and go to 1. So 25 Louisville, bye week. 24 Vanderbilt. We beat Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt's going to drop out. 23 Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh lost Virginia. They're going to drop out. Kansas State had a bye week, I believe. Colorado, 21, wins. Washington State, I think they had a bye week. So who knows? Clemson, 19, they won. Army, 18, they barely won this week. So who knows? It's, Ole Miss at 16, Iowa State 17. Iowa State lost again to Kansas, so they're probably going to drop out. LSU was at 4, or Texas A&M was 15. LSU 14, SMU 13, Boise State 12, Bama 11. So you got to think them beating, a 14 team, they're probably going to jump up. Notre Dame 10, BYU 9, BYU beat Utah, which there's a whole controversy around that apparently. Indiana squeaked by Michigan. Tennessee beat Mississippi State. Penn State, I can't remember who they played. Texas manhandled Florida. Miami lost, so they're going to drop down. Ohio State won. Georgia lost, and Oregon won. So it's, I don't know, the way we've seen the college football playoff rankings in years past, it's almost like a blank slate each week, where
it is.
You don't really know how it's going to go.
I think too, this past time, they didn't rank us. I think they were almost waiting to see if we had that standard South Carolina letdown after a big win.
Yeah.
And that may play into, okay, you weren't ranked last week, but you might be 18 this week, because we were really, you might have, we might have wanted to put you at 21 this past week, but we really didn't know what you were going to do coming off of a big win just because of your history. Yeah. Oh, okay, you went out there and you won pretty big and handily against this team on the road that would, had been ranked. You could very easily see them within the top 20, or you could see them right at 25. Nobody knows.
Yeah, and Texas put the hurting on Florida, 49-17. Florida, I don't know why they did this week, but their athletic director released a huge statement stating they were keeping Billy Napier as their head coach. I think it was just a ploy to keep that quarterback in DJ Lagway. Yeah. Missouri beats Oklahoma 30-23. I don't know, that. Brent Venable should be fired the way that game ended last night. I mean, there was 20 to 30 seconds left in the game, and Oklahoma has the ball. They're in their own territory. And they strip sack for the fumble and lose the game. And so, and Drinkowitz came out saying we're still fighting for a college football playoff spot.
No, you're not. Here's the thing: is they released the lines for this week. We're 13.5-point favorites. That's the most favored we've been against a SEC team all year.
Yeah,
probably in the last 3 years that we've been that
I don't
heavily
like
favored.
I don't like that. We haven't beat Missouri in so long, so but we'll see. We'll be back next Sunday, for the hopefully recapping the Carolina versus Missouri game, and let's see who.
It would be great if Clemson and Carolina didn't play at the same time for once this year.
I know. Yeah. Clemson plays at noon next Saturday against Pitt.
Okay, so not at the same time.
Nope. So I think we play at
6 o'clock.
4:15. So like we did this past week, or like we did yesterday. So we should be able to watch the Clemson game, no problem. And we'll be back next Sunday. Steven, anything else before we get out of here?
That's all I can think of. Just put us in the playoffs. We're better than it. We're better than y'all. We're better than y'all.
How about the Cowboys? Are y'all
suck.
playing right now?
Yeah, 7-6. I don't know how. It's 7-6. Dak's out for the year. I want to lose every game that we can lose. I'm still gonna wear my stuff. I'm still gonna watch every game. I'm gonna be loyal because I'm a loyal fan. But I hope we lose every game. Let's get a top pick. Dak's out for the year.
How about them Panthers?
Big win. I hope y'all keep winning. Keep winning so we can keep losing and take that draft pick from you.
Yeah, right.
That's gonna be a slugfest, that Carolina Cowboys game. I think they play in like 2 weeks, or maybe it's like Christmas. Oh man, they play sometime in December. I'm pretty sure. Let's see.
Where's it at?
They play the 15th in Carolina.
We going?
No. I'll probably have some Christmas thing that I got to do that day.
Yeah. All right, well, folks, we'll have our high school recap episode drop in Tuesday night, and then we'll be back next Sunday, hopefully recapping a Gamecocks win and a Clemson loss. We'll see y'all next week.
No, we need Clemson to win.
Yeah. Well,
we need Clemson to win.
For playoff purposes, yes, but I still hope Clemson loses.
We need them to look like crap, still win, still stay ranked.
Yeah.
But yeah, go. No, I'm not even going to say that. Nope. My soul wouldn't even let me get the words out.
Yep. Don't say it. We'll see y'all later.
All righty.